Hey, I'm Caleb, and I'm so glad that you're here. Before we start, I want to play a quick game with some of my friends. You've all heard the term red flag, right? It's a warning sign about the qualities or habits you see in another person. The stuff that makes you think, whoa, time out. I'm not sure I can deal with that. That feels like a red flag. So, I'm going to share some statements with my friends, and if they think it's a red flag, they're going to let us know. Ready? Okay. Someone who touches people with their feet. Someone who likes pineapple on pizza. Someone who likes ketchup on eggs. Someone who doesn't like Chick-fil-A. Someone who wears sneakers with no socks. Someone who doesn't have social media. Someone who uses 1 million emojis in their text. Ooh, someone who wears sunglasses indoors. I mean, some of these are like immediate red flags for me. Doesn't like Chick-fil-A, that's just unnecessary, right? Pineapple on pizza is fine. If you're touching other people with your feet, you need to get checked. Okay, there's something's not right there, okay? And here's the deal. Most of the things on that list are like silly red flags, but the bigger ones, the ones that make or break a relationship, the ones that show us whether or not we can expect respect from someone else, those are critical to know. Those can help us determine what's best for us, what's best for others, and what God wants for us when it comes to stuff like sex and relationships. Yep, we're going there. And I hope you'll choose to stick with me because believe it or not, church is one of the best places to talk about all things red flags, relationships, and respect. We're going to talk a lot about sexual desires throughout this series. Here's what I mean by that. The word desire means a strong feeling of wanting to have something or do something. And when I talk about sexual desires, I'm talking about the sexual things we feel, think about, or want to do. When you think someone is really cute and get that nervous feeling in your stomach when you talk to them. When you want to send that person a DM or snap. When you decide to hold hands or kiss or be close to the person you're dating or have a crush on. All that stuff, those are desires you may have as a middle schooler or even as you get older. In fact, these kinds of desires are normal and natural. God actually gave us the ability to experience that kind of attraction and desire. If you hear me say nothing else today, please hear this. Your desires are not bad. The fact that you're curious about or interested in things like sex and relationships isn't bad. It's not something we should be embarrassed or awkward about because it's actually something we were designed to experience. The problem comes when we're not sure how to respond to those desires. When we don't know how to talk about them or what to do with them or what's actually good for us when it comes to the things we desire. That's when things get really tricky. But trust me, there's an answer here. There's a specific plan that God created for us when it comes to our sexual desires. A plan that will help us choose what's best for us and for other people. A plan that will help us avoid red flags and instead choose respect when it comes to our relationships. So a long time ago, people who really loved God wrote down all kinds of stuff about sex, relationships, and desires that can help us still today. Today, we're going to look at some wise advice about sexual desires written in the Bible by a really important guy named Paul. Paul wrote a lot of the books in the New Testament, part of the Bible that's about what happened during and after the time Jesus spent on earth. We call these books, but they're actually letters that Paul originally wrote to help Christians in the first century understand how to live and follow Jesus together. This specific letter was written to a group of Jesus followers in Rome. Paul was really good at helping people see what mattered to God and what should matter to those who follow God as a result. The people making up this faith community in Rome definitely needed to hear what Paul had to say, and honestly, I think we all do too. Paul's words can do a lot for us in a conversation about our God-given desires. So, let's take a look. Therefore, I urge you, brothers and sisters, in view of God's mercy, to offer your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and pleasing to God. This is your true and proper worship. Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good, pleasing, and perfect will. Now, I know that's a lot in just 2 verses, so let's break it down. Paul started off by talking about who God is, and that's someone who offers mercy. Mercy means getting compassion and kindness when you don't deserve it. When your coach doesn't make you run the extra laps when you were late to practice, that's showing mercy by not punishing you for your actions. Because we're all human, we all mess up sometimes. We all make decisions that don't always line up with God's best for us. That's what we know as sin. And because sin separates us from God, God showed mercy by sending Jesus to save us and make a way for us to be in relationship with God again. Guys, that's a big deal. It's a sign of God's love for us. It's a sign that we can trust God cares about us and wants what's best for us. And we can respond to what God has done for us by living the way God calls us to live in all areas, including sex and relationships. You see, God cares about what we do with our desires. This means that when it comes to our sexual desires, we choose to respond with sexual integrity. That means choosing to respond to the sexual things we feel, think, and desire in a way that respects ourselves, others, and God. Paul explained that we should respond to our sexual desires in ways that are pleasing to God. It's not that we're supposed to get rid of or ignore our desires. He doesn't say that at all. But he does say we should respond to our desires in ways that are good, pleasing, and honorable to God, ourselves, and others. That's sexual integrity. Sounds great, right? Respond to your desires in ways that are good and pleasing to God. Honor God with your desires. Choose sexual integrity. No problem. Not really. I mean, it's one thing to read verses like this and hear messages about God's good plan for our desires, but it's a totally different thing to actually know what it looks like to live it out every day. When we find ourselves curious to watch that YouTube video, or interested in dating that new kid at school, or wanting to send that picture on Snap, then what do we do? How do we actually respond to those desires in a way that honors God? Well, look back at the last part of Paul's letter here. Be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good, pleasing, and perfect will. We can start by renewing or changing our minds. The idea of renewing your mind means to see things from a new or different perspective. So we can ask God to change the way we see the plan for our desires, to see sexual desires the way God sees desires. We can pray for guidance to help us understand it and how it can impact our lives and the lives of others. We can ask for wisdom to help us see God's plan for our sexual desires as good. When we do, we'll be able to see where we're operating with integrity and where we might be venturing into red flag territory. We'll be able to see where our sexual integrity is respected in a relationship and where it isn't. We'll be able to choose to respond to our desires with the sexual integrity God calls us to, because God cares about what we do with our desires. So, to help us know what this actually looks like in our real lives, we're gonna break it down. We'll identify some red flags to look out for when it comes to our desires, point out the type of respect we want to practice toward ourselves and others, and talk about how we can use our relationships with adults, with trusted adults, to gain wisdom and guidance when it comes to our desires. Here's what I mean. First, for red flags, start noticing them. God's design for sex within the context of marriage should always honor yourselves, others, and God. Now that you know God has a plan when it comes to your desires, you can start to pay attention to and notice those things that push you toward something else. If you notice a response to your desires that doesn't line up with sexual integrity, that's a red flag. And then second, for respect, set a new standard for sexual integrity. Right now, you have a chance to set a standard for how you're going to respond to your desires and how you act, what you look at, what you think, and how you talk about things. You can decide to have sexual integrity. You can decide to respect yourself and others. Maybe you've made decisions that haven't honored God with your desires, or maybe you've even found yourself in situations that you didn't expect or ask for. The good news for all of us is no matter what we've chosen or dealt with in the past, God loves us, cares about us, and He isn't judging us. We can always begin to choose sexual integrity today. And then third, for relationships, share with the right people. No matter how awkward you may feel about the sexual desires you have, you can always choose to talk with wise, trusted people in your life. They can help you set healthy boundaries and be a safe place to process struggles or questions you have about this stuff. Your small group leader doesn't claim to be the expert on this topic, but I promise they have more wisdom and insight than you think. And besides that, they love you and want what's best for you when it comes to sex and sexual desires. Remember, God cares about what we do with our desires. That's why I hope you'll choose to respond to yours with sexual integrity. As we close, I want to say that there may be some of you that feel like the choice has been taken from you. Maybe you've even experienced sexual abuse or harassment, and if that's you, I am so sorry. What happened is not your fault. What's been done to you does not impact your sexual integrity. It does not change your ability to honor yourself, others, or God. If that's something you're dealing with, I encourage you to talk to a trusted adult like a parent, a family member, a small group leader, or counselor about it. They want to see you get the help and support that you deserve. When it comes to red flags, respect, and relationships, I want you to feel safe to talk about all of it. It's one of the reasons we created groups, to connect you with other people who you can trust and who can encourage you to honor God with your life.